Luisito is an adorable little boy. His little hands, his bright eyes, and a small lock of hair that falls on his forehead gives him an air that inspires a lot of tenderness. He is about 9 years old. His voice is a little hoarse, but when he speaks, he's very well understood. He never leaves his polite manners. In the village, everyone loves him because every day they witness his angelic appearance. He's a little angel. What a cute and polite child. These are the phrases that are heard wherever he arrives, asking for alms or a little help, as he usually says when he arrives at the houses. Luisito arrived in town one day at the end of January. He began to go from house to house begging for help because his mother was very sick and could not go out to work. So he begged to be able to buy the things she needed. When people heard such sad words coming from those little lips, they were deeply impacted in their hearts. The interior of those who heard it could not remain without feeling tenderness and at the same time sadness for that situation. The child was received with affection in all the houses where he arrived. In one, they gave him something to eat and some coins. In the other, they gave him some refreshments and some coins. After the third house, the child hardly finished what was on his plate, and by the fourth house he said he had already eaten. In the hearts of the villagers, that child had been adopted by them. The poor orphan boy now had a whole community looking out for him. Time went by and the boy always returned to the village. It was not known exactly where he lived with his mother. Everyone thought maybe he lived down the road some distance or maybe in the neighboring village. Whenever people asked him, he would just say, "Over there," pointing with his little finger to the south where the vegetation was thicker. They also asked him about his mother and he always repeated the same answer: "She is very sick." Those answers satisfied the curiosity of all those who asked him, and they were satisfied that they helped the child of God, except for one, the village priest. Father Crisanto watched him pass by every morning from the bell tower of the chapel, which was about 20 meters high. From the bell tower, he could see a great distance down the road. He would watch it walking little by little in the distance, and many times after ringing the bell calling for the 7 a.m. Mass, he would stay for a while contemplating that little figure that with such consistency always traveled the same route. The father would think to himself, "Where does that child really live?" In his mind, he could visualize a little old house almost falling down with old and dirty boards acting as walls. Or maybe a shack with no walls and exposed to the elements of the weather, or perhaps in some location just covered by some pieces of plastic or tin. Those thoughts were temporary, but they used to return continuously. They would come when he officiated at Mass, when he confessed a parishioner at lunch, or even at evening prayers. He had inquired with the villagers and they all agreed on two things: the adorableness of the child and the answer he gave when asked about his mother, who was very ill. Father Crisanto became suspicious. One day, very early in the morning, he decided to follow the child. Walking at some distance from him, he walked about 2 kilometers. At every turn of the road, Father Crisanto, who had his years with him, prayed that it was the place where Luisito lived. Going up a small hill along the road, he lost sight of him. Father Crisanto, hurrying, could not see him anymore, walked to the next bend in the path, and did not see him either. But suddenly, in the distance, he heard some laughter, undoubtedly from children. The direction of those laughing children did not come from further along the path, but from the side, where there were many trees. With difficulty but with determination, Father Crisanto left the path and began to make his way through the thick vegetation. His long cassock made it difficult for him to walk, and his leather sandals got tangled in the dry grass. Twice he escaped stumbling and falling in the afternoon, showing the last rays of the sun did not make the task any easier. Suddenly, the childish voices ceased to be heard, and the barking of an indignant dog began to be heard. The father was undeterred and continued his arduous task, and as best as he could, the father managed to reach a clearing, a piece of land that was free of undergrowth and trees, with a small hut. In the background, a mound of stones of medium height, to the right perhaps 30 or 40 centimeters high. The dog's increasing intense barking gave the father away, and the children came out of the hut. It was a girl of about 7 years of age with curls on her round, pale face that denoted more health than that place could inspire, and Luisito with her. The resemblance of the two made it evident that they were siblings. Luisito and his sister saved the father from being bitten by the dog that guarded and defended their young masters from that strange dark figure of a man in a cassock at the end of daylight. The father stayed with them that night, for he did not think it advisable to return in such darkness and to inquire further into the story the children told him when they were completely uncovered. Their mother had died when Negro, the dog that almost bit him, was a puppy. From what he deduced, it had been about a year since the poor woman's death, which coincided with the moment when Luisito had appeared for the first time. As best they could, they gathered stones and placed them little by little until they formed a mound under which the mother's body lay. The news spread like wildfire in the town. Everyone came to witness the scene described by Father Crisanto and decided to bury that poor woman in the town cemetery. According to Luisito, his father had left them in that place and had gone to look for help when his mother got sick in the wagon she was traveling in, but he never returned. His mother died, and he had to take care of his younger sister. That story deeply touched the soul of that town, and the couple, now of mature age and childless, owners of the only bakery in town, decided to adopt that adventurous couple of orphan children. Luisito and his sister found in their adoptive parents the affection, tenderness, and love they needed so much, and which they had been deprived of due to the death of their mother. They grew up in that bosom of that family and used to visit every Sunday that tomb that contained the remains of the one who once gave them life, and that as soon as she had left, they always remembered her and never forgot her. This is the end of our story for today. We hope you enjoyed it, and we invite you to join us in our next video.